Welcome back guys, we're back with another tutorial. This time we're going to be going over how you can add Geyser and Floodgate to your server to make it cross-platform so you're able to join with both Bedrock and Java. This is going to be for the latest version 117.1 or 117.11 for Bedrock. However, it will also work going forward with the future updates. So a few things that are required with this, of course, is going to be a Minecraft server. If you haven't got one already, head over to SeekaHost.co. You're going to be able to get yourself a server, whether it be small or large, and just pick the package that's perfect for you and how many players that you want on. Second thing that we're going to need is a Geyser plugin and also the Floodgate. We'll go through that and how you're able to get that from the website. Last but not least, we're going to be using FileZIlla for this. You might be able to do this for your FTP file access. It just depends how large the files are. So I tend to recommend using FileZIlla for this. Again, absolutely free, and I'll leave the download link in the description if you want to go grab it. It's just a much easier way of being able to move server files over, delete them or edit them. So to get started, we're going to be doing this on a default server. So this is going to be pretty much how you're going to start on here if you do start with a brand new server. Of course, you can still follow the steps. If you haven't got it on default, you can just change it and follow along. We're going to be deleting the server files first, just to make sure that we start with a nice fresh server with the correct jar. So with that, let's get into it. Now, two things that you're going to need, like we said, is the Geyser plugin and also the Floodgate plugin. Now, if you're on Bedrock and you're thinking, oh, I don't know all about this, this does still work. You can do this just having a Bedrock account. All that we're going to be doing is using a Java server as a shell to host both Bedrock and Java. So in fact, if you are just a Bedrock user, you can still go ahead, follow along with this. You don't need a Java account whatsoever, and you can still create a cross-platform server. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come down to Geyser on the main page. I'll leave the links in the description. And we're going to head up to download. So let's click to download, and it's going to take us to the master page for Geyser. So next up, you're going to look for the Geyser, and we're going to go for Geyser Spigot. Now I just want to say this will work, and it does have bungee cord and sponge, etc. However, I find it best to work with Spigot, and the most optimized server jar for this is going to be Paper, which we're going to be using. If you're not sure what I mean by that, Paper jar will support Spigot plugins and also Bucket plugins. It's also really well optimized for your servers. So we're going to get the Spigot that's going to run well on that. So we're going to go Geyser Spigot, we're going to click on that, it's going to start to download. You probably won't see because my face unfortunately on the screen's covering it. However, it's going to ask if you want to keep it. We're going to go ahead and click keep. So we've now got the Geyser plugin and we're halfway to what we need. Now next up, what you're going to do from this page here, you're going to go to Geyser MC, we're going to come down to Floodgate, we're then going to go to Master, and then we're going to download the Floodgate, and it should be here, Floodgate Spigot jar. So we're going to be downloading this one. Now you're always going to be given the most up-to-date version. If you want to check for older versions, just come down to your left and you can see the build history, etc. and look more into it. However, I do usually recommend the updated version. They do loads of bug fixes, the Geyser team do, and they always keep it pretty up-to-date. So let's just go ahead and click Floodgate Spigot. It's going to download on the top right, and again, just click the three buttons and keep if you're on Windows 10. Just to make sure that you actually download it. Of course, your computer wants to protect you against bad stuff, but this is a trusted source. Now again, if you haven't got FileZIlla, I do recommend it. It's a free program. I'll leave the link in the description, and simply go ahead and download FileZIlla for 64-bit if that's your operating system. Go through the installation process, and it really only takes a few minutes, and you'll be able to move your server files over super quickly and easily. Now with everything there, we can actually get along with adding it to our server and get started really. So first thing that we're going to do, and first thing you should always do on your server, is actually stop it before you change any files, whether you're deleting or anything like that. Now, what we're going to want to do is change the server jar here so it matches, and we want the latest Paper jar. Again, don't worry if you're on Bedrock, you can still follow along with all of this. You don't need a Java account in any way. You can do this completely on Bedrock, and I have tried myself. Once the server stopped, what we want to do now is just delete any old files. I like to do this just as a matter of course, because then you won't get any mix-ups with your files later on if one doesn't get deleted properly, and then there's duplicate files or anything like that. So first of all, if you do have a world that you want to save, or you want to save any other files, just go ahead and do that first. You can either do that through going to files, and then you can go to backup. From backup, you can then press start and then download your world. One of the ways that I prefer to delete all my old files is just using FileZIlla, because you can simply select all of them. So to actually log into FileZIlla, what you're going to be doing is you're going to need your FTP file access. You can get this through going to Files, FTP file access, and then using the information here to actually log into your FileZIlla. By this I mean the FTP address will go as your host, your FTP port will go into the port section. You then got your FTP username, which of course is your username, and then your multi-craft password, and that will go into the password section. Once you've filled that in, just click Quick Connect. You'll connect to your server, all of the files from the server will appear on the right hand side, your computer files are on the left hand side, and if you want to quick connect, just use this little downwards arrow here and it will remember the information of your past servers. You've also got a few other ways of deleting your server files before we get started with this. One of the ways is coming down to Files, Setup. We can then choose over here, Clean Mod Directories and Plugins, and tick All Server Files. Pop in your password, hit apply. When you restart your server, it will restart it and delete all the old files. And you can simply just change it to the paper jar that you want to change it to. Third option is coming to Files, FTP File Access, and you can simply tick All. Of course, make sure that you have done your backups first, or just copy anything that you want over. Any files on here you're able to download for your FTP file access. However, we're just going to be deleting them, so I'm just going to tick All and I'm going to go Delete. Then we're going to go Submit, and it's going to have deleted all of our server files. That way, when we now upload a new server jar, which is going to be paper 1.17, it's all going to work nicely. There's going to be no mix matches. Once the server starts back up, it's going to load up all the correct files. So as you can see, we've now got a server. It's stopped. It's got nothing on it whatsoever. And we want to come down to where it says default. So from here, I do recommend paper and the latest one. You can of course still use Spigot. However, paper tends to work a little bit better. It's more optimized and you can use more plugins. So let's just go ahead and choose paper 117.1. The underneath bit will autofill itself. Now what we're going to do is we're just simply going to hit save. That's going to save and we're going to start our server back up. Now this is going to start our server on a 1.17.1 paper jar, which is Java. However, we're now going to add the Geyser and the Floodgate to make it bedrock, and then you can connect with either one. The reason for changing this to the paper as well was because with a default or just a normal Java server, you're not going to get your plugins section, whereas with paper you can also add plugins. This does mean, of course, that if you're playing bedrock, you can start to use plugins on your server now, but you're able to control them just like a Java user would. So with our server started back up, we're actually going to go ahead and stop it again, because now we're going to be adding in the Geyser and Floodgate plugin. So we just wanted to make sure that all the files are loaded up, which they are now on the correct version. So now to upload the plugins, I'm going to be using FileZIlla. It's only because these plugins are a little bit large, especially with the new updates, and FTP file access on Multicraft is notoriously known for not dealing very well with large files. So let's open up our FileZIlla and connect to our server. Once connected, you're going to see all your files on the right hand side. Of course, like we said earlier, use that doing the host, the username, password and port to connect to your server. Then we're going to want to go to the plugins. So what you want to do now is find the plugins on your computer side. I've actually moved these over to my desktop just to find them a little bit easier than on the download. So on the left hand side here, you can find where on your computer you want to find them, the files. So I've gone to desktop and it's opened up the files within the desktop. As you can see here, we've got Floodgate and we've got Spigot as well. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to select the Floodgate as well, and I'm going to drag and drop them over to the right hand side. So essentially dragging and dropping them into our server. Once you're all done, you're going to get transfers finished as a message. We can now close down FileZIlla, we don't need it anymore. Once the plugins are uploaded, go ahead, start your server back up, just kick in all the files and folders, and then really we're almost done. We just need to change a few settings, and you're going to be ready to connect. Now that we have it uploaded, we're going to stop it one more time. I know there's a lot of starting and stopping in this, but it's just to be done correctly. Now that we stop, we're going to come to Files, and we're going to go to Config Files, and then you're going to have to look for something that is called Geyser Spigot config.yml. It's usually on the first page, and it starts with config.yml. Just make sure it's the actual Geyser Spigot one. Now if we go ahead and click on this is the last bit that we actually have to edit to be able to join on with our Bedrock server. At this point, what I do suggest is just right hand clicking on your internet page tab and duplicate the tab. With a duplicated one, just come back to your servers and just leave it up on the main page, because you're going to need your IP and you're going to need your port, and it's just much easier to copy it over if it's on the opposite page. So back to the original one now. Yep, I'm pretty blind, I'm going to need some glasses for this. So back to the original one now, and you can see that for Bedrock we have, and this is right at the top with the Geyser config.yml, and we're going to want to change a few bits over. So the first thing that we want to change is the port that will listen for connections. At the moment it's set to the default port, however you might not be using the default port for your server. Of course, if you are, leave it. However, we're using the port of 25575, so we're just going to copy that over. We're going to come back here, highlight the number, and then we're going to paste over it. Now if it does move like that, just be aware that you only need one space. Don't leave it any more than one space, no less than one space. It should go port, colon, and then a space, then the number. Now we're going to scroll down just a little bit more. One of the next things that you can change, and this is optional, this is going to be the message of the day 1 and message of the day 2. This is going to be what's appearing for the Bedrock client when they log on to the little screen before they click onto your server. If you want to change that, totally up to you. You can also change the one underneath it where it says Geyser, and I'm just going to put JDogs. Now from here, we're going to keep scrolling down a little bit more, and what we need to look for is the IP address set to auto. Once you see this part right here, so the IP address of the remote Java server is going to be set to auto, which is going to be looking for a certain IP. However, we want it to look for our specific IP to our server. So back to the other page, and we're going to be grabbing our IP address. We're going to copy that over, come back over, double click on auto, right hand click, and then paste over it, and that will just paste our IP address. Again, just making sure that there is a space there. Just underneath, we're going to be asked for our port one more time, so just make sure that this matches our port that we have. So we had 25575, at the moment it's on 25565, so let's just change that over to 7, make sure that our port is matching again. Now last but not least, and this is an important factor of what you've got to do, and this is why we use Floodgate as well. Not a lot of people mention Floodgate, but this stops you having to sign into a Java account or any sort of sign in. You can simply just go with your Bedrock account and just log straight on to your server. So we're going to change this from online, and we're going to go to Floodgate. Because we've installed the plugin, the authorization type will now be set to Floodgate, so people will be able to come straight through. Apart from that, you can now go ahead and just check out all your other config.yml. We don't need to do anything more. You can of course just change it if that's just what you like to do. And we're going to go to save. Once saved, come back to your main dashboard here, and we're going to start up the server, because now we have pretty much everything ready. We have our Geyser, we have our Floodgate, the server's running, we've changed the settings. So the next step is, once it does start, is actually logging on, just making sure that we can actually play. Short time later, we have our tick, so now let's head in game. I'm going to say bye now because I'm going to take my screen off, and we're just going to go straight onto the Minecraft game on a Bedrock server just to make sure that it's working correctly. So just loading up our Bedrock now, because as I said, we just want to make sure that this does actually work. Of course, Java's going to be able to join on at any point because it is a Java server. However, we want to make sure that our Bedrock can join. So just go to play, and I do believe on the servers list, I should have it down as the Skyblock, or that's what it used to be. And if you're not sure how to add the server, just go ahead and name it. So I'm just going to do JDog test. You can then add in your IP. So if we just come over here, we can enter in our address or our IP. Of course, if you have made yourself a custom domain, just use that instead. And then we're going to enter in our ports. Paste that into that section. So just open this back up again, save, or just go ahead and then play. I've already added it, so it's just going to come up with a message like that. Of course, yours will either go ahead and save or play. So we got our server showing, we've got no people on there, and we got a good ping. So let's just go ahead and join server and just make sure that everything's working nicely. So when you do first join the world, you're going to get that little bit that you just saw there with looks like you're falling through the sky. However, that doesn't last very long, and then you're in the game. One thing you can notice that I've got a dot in front of my name, so it's .jdog. That's going to be because I'm Bedrock client. That's just how it sort of easier differentiates between the Bedrock and Java. However, as you can see, it's working, and not only that, it's working well. There is pretty much no lag. I've got to say they've improved this very much since the 1.17. 1.17.1 seems to have a huge amount of bug fixes, and if you just check that out, there really is no lag at all, which is great. You can get along with your friends, start playing your Bedrock or Java servers together. Not only this, guys, this does mean that in fact you can make yourself a server like this and run it just as a Bedrock server with all the Java plugins, or pretty much all of them. We've done a test. I'll leave a link in the description or popping up now where I've done on my personal channel a few videos on how you can add Bedrock plugins. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again on the next tutorial. Bye bye.